Me, Not Me is very much a show about poetry. It's about me as a poet. I've been writing poems now as a professional poet for about 6 or 7 years. And I've realised I've got this massive bank of work. Some of it is character work, some of it is work that is very personal. And I realised looking back on it, actually some of it is things, the one thing starts to bleed into the other.
Yeah.
If you're writing a piece of personal poetry, you're sometimes jazzing it up a little bit to make it a little bit more arty-farty. And sometimes when you're writing a piece from somebody else's point of view, you realise actually there's a little bit of you in there as well, and the personal stories start to leak in. And the audience's job, and they are going to have a job during the course of Me, Not Me, is to work out where the boundaries are. Which ones are me? Which ones are not me? Is there a bit of crossover? Do they really know who I am by the end of it? And they might know who I am, and they might love that, and I might have loads and loads of really good friends, or they might look at me and go, well, I don't fancy him very much, and we'll shuffle away, but they've paid by then, so I don't mind. That's essentially the point of the show, is to kind of get to grips with, what's real, what's reality, and where does the artistry start. I think there's poems in the show, that some of which I wrote right at the beginning of when I was beginning to write poetry at all as a professional poet. So some of them are 7 or 8 years old, some of them are brand new. There's 4 or 5, and most of them have not been performed certainly live as a spoken word show in this form anyway. It's a real mixture of work, and actually that's been really useful for me to go back, because there's certain poems where I've stated very categorically things that I think, and then I've looked back on it, I was like, well, I'm a bit older now. I don't really think that anymore. I'm not quite as radical as I thought I was. It's all about that kind of evolution. We change our thoughts, we change our perspectives on things over time, because life happens, and that's again a part of the show. Some of it will reflect my children's work that I do. There'll be some stuff creeping in. I'm sure there'll be a fart joke here, there, or everywhere. I'm thinking about the possibility of a dance routine. I don't know. I've got a GCSE in dance. Maybe I should use it. I don't know. So, I've got to use it for something. Probably about 8. I was about age 8, and it was an assembly. Me and my friend Darren decided that we were going to take over the assembly because the assembly was boring, and our teacher didn't say no. So we started performing these plays on Thursday mornings, and it went from there. I went into youth theatre, did a drama degree. Drama teacher for 10 years, got out, snuck out under the fence, as most teachers are doing now, and now I work most of my time working on poetry and developing new books and publishing new poets as well, and the other half of my time I work with a brilliant organisation called Empathy Lab as well, which is about developing children's empathy skills, but through reading and understanding characters through books and literature, and that's a really rewarding part of my day job. There's lots going on. Busy man, as my Twitter feed says. I mean, obviously working with kids is wonderful. There is nothing better than starting a school assembly, and kids will just they're the best hecklers I've ever met, especially 4 and 5 year olds. But there are times where you do want to talk about issues, and you want to talk about things that actually you want to discuss in an adult environment, or at least in a more mature audience environment, and that gives me the chance. This gives me the chance to do that. And as I said, there's plenty of my younger audience work that actually really speaks well to adults as well. I've performed. There's a piece that's not in the show actually, but it's called So Fabulous, and it's about a knight who basically rides a rainbow sparkling glittery unicorn, right? Everybody in the room knows exactly what that poem's about, right? It's the big toxic masculinity. I am going to slay a dragon, but actually he drinks from a gold tankard, and he wows the crowds with stories and poetry every night. That's the sort of thing that actually works on for any audience, and that sort of poetry is going to be in the show. I'm not going to bring So Fabulous in. So Fabulous was part of my last Fringe show. It's very 2019. Well, it's not poetry based at the moment, but I've set myself this task. I went back and reread all of the books that I read between the age of 0 and 18. So the ones that were read to me to start with, and then the ones that that I was forced to read at A-level. And I've reread all of them. I'm writing a review of each one, and gone back and reflected on those books, because they're part of this journey as well. Because I've started reading things that I read when I was 14 at school. Now I know why I think like that. And it's a really interesting sort of experiment to go back and look at those books again and find out why you think the way you think about stuff. And that's going to be hopefully interspersed with other authors' opinions about books they've read, and that's the next project on the agenda. So it's about building things as high as possible, and then helping to promote younger poets as well. The poets, the publishers I work with, Double Rainbow Publishing, we're publishing a new work by a brilliant poet called Ebony Errington Beach, who's based down in Cheshire, and she's just fantastic. She's 13 years old. She writes the most amazing work. She's just into the middle of her second collection, so we'll be publishing that as well. So there's all sorts of things going on. I'm expecting hecklers and people to shout at me, so I will encourage that constantly. We're also going a little bit. We're going a bit tech. Everyone's going to have a questionnaire at the beginning of the show. 20 questions about Paul Jenkins that you might know and you might not know. So they're going to fill it in to start with. So we'll do some scanning with QR codes and things like that, so you can just do it on your phone. And then at the end, we'll see who knew me the best.